It's a really tough question. There are a lot of triggers, and some you don't even expect.
The triggers that intensify my grief are those out of those blue gut punches, slap in the face. You weren't expecting that.
I would say the biggest trigger for me is music. And it's because my daughter and I listened to so many songs together. She had a huge playlist. I had a huge playlist.
Songs. There's still a song that I can't listen to the moment I hear just the first or second note. I either have to leave the store or turn off the radio and switch it to something else.
The song Fast Cars by Luke Combs is something that we played at his service.
Walking through the grocery store and seeing one of his snacks that he loved and being reminded that I can't buy that for him anymore.
I'd say that, there are expected triggers and there are unexpected triggers.
And she was a dancer, so she danced and made up routines to a ton of songs.
The things that really bothered me that were really big gut punches were seeing a guy on a motorcycle on a sports bike, especially if they had a backpack on and a helmet on, a full face helmet, and you couldn't see their face.
Another one that's been really inconvenient is the interstate through Phoenix up to Flagstaff.
It's the only song that I haven't been able to get through. And I don't know when I'll be able to get through it, but I know I will. I'm not going to let that hold me captive.
The expected triggers like anniversary, angelversary, birthdays, holidays.
I would look up and just think that's my son, for a second, or hope that's my son. Or, even if I knew it the second before that wasn't my son, it still hit me like it should have been.
I was driving when I found out that my son had collapsed and that paramedics were with him and they were working him. I, of course, did what any mom would do, and I jumped in my car and broke the land speed record to get up to Flagstaff.
So ever since her death, I have pretty much stopped listening to most music.
And it would play I'm not kidding, every morning and every evening when, right after he passed. So that triggers me. But now I can listen to it and not fall apart.
No one wants to sit around crying all the time from every little thing that triggered you.
Going to the home that he used to live in when I have to drop off our grand princess, knowing that he's not there, the first couple of times I had to do it, it was debilitating.
And that really stinks in a lot of ways because, for example, like one of the things that we both obsessed over was the musical Hamilton.
We all expect that those triggers, are going to really be difficult to walk through. And so we can kind of plan for them.
Oreo cookies, chocolate milk. That was his favorite.
And every time I head up I-17, that freeway, I am reminded at every single point of where I received a phone call and what I was told.
But the more I did it, and the more I told myself he wouldn't want me to live in that debilitation, it still hurts. It's more of a sting now.
After he passed away, we would fall apart in the grocery store because we would walk down the cookie aisle and we would immediately fall apart.
And I would try to change that. So instead of having those triggers intensify my grief, my ugly grief, my sad grief, I try to change all of that now and make it a good grief.
And I can't listen to Hamilton, and I loved it. I listened to it all the time, but we listened to it together.
And that's really hard. That freeway is really kind of the only way I can go up north, and up north is the forest, and that's where I feel most comfortable.
I don't think there won't be a sting, but it doesn't burn.
And then we'd get to the milk section and we'd look at each other and we'd be falling apart and push past the chocolate milk and look at each other. And
so I've really had to work to remove all of those reminders and move past that.
Yes, they knock us down, but I would say for me personally, you know, the triggers that intensify my grief the most would be the unexpected ones.
And I'd actually bought her, we were going to go see Hamilton. I bought her tickets for Christmas, and she died 2 weeks before we were supposed to go to the show.
A grief that you can sit back and smile a little about. Maybe some tears are going down your face, but at the same time, you're smiling because that was a memory and you liked it, even if it was a weird memory that used to trigger you.
My son died in the city of Flagstaff. He was up at NAU.
Hearing things that my grand princess, is what we call her, would say. There's been times where she'll just randomly say, "Do you have my daddy's phone number?" "Yes, baby, it's in my phone." "Well, I was told that we can't call it because he won't answer."
You know, the ones that you're going along your day and you think you're doing just fine, and, you know, I got this.
My son loved music, all kinds of music.
So going into Flagstaff to do grocery shopping or anything that I would need to do was so difficult.
So it's just one of those things that anytime someone mentions Hamilton or I see anything about Hamilton, that is an automatic trigger for me. And a lot of songs are as well.
people would probably think we were fighting or something, but it's just triggers. I mean, chocolate milk, who would have thought?
When he was a teenager one day, I said something to him in the yard, and there was a song playing on the speaker in the background, and it was Leonard Skinner's Simple Man.
Because driving in, I would drive right by his apartment, and that's where he died. He died not far from his apartment, coming off of an elevator.
And then something happens, you talk to somebody, like for instance, I was at a grocery store probably within the first year of my loss.
And I say, well, we don't need to call the phone number because heaven, you can hear everything. You just speak out loud. And she's like, really?
Just the typical days that everyone struggles with, but honestly, more for me, it is just the everyday little things that hit me, and they're just like a punch in the gut.
That's his song. That's my song to him. And I've always had that. Now, it used to, as soon as I would hear it, I'd lose it.
And to this day, we haven't bought cookies or chocolate milk because we just can't do it.
Trying to bring the positive into her little bitty heart that feels so crushed in the moment. Seeing her light up when I say, yeah, just say daddy's name and he'll be right there with you to comfort you. And then she giggles. So things like that fill me up at the end, even though it stings at the beginning.
So what I had to do to get past that was challenge myself. And I went by myself to that apartment complex.
I met a neighbor there, and you start chatting, and we had another local accident where the mother, father, and child were all killed.
And went up the elevator that he was in, stepped out of the elevator, and I literally laid down on the floor right where I knew my son died.
I know he's with me every day. His presence is very, very heavy around me.
Now it's a song that I can listen to and it doesn't hurt so bad. It makes me think of him, but now I don't cry as hard. Now I don't have to pull over and cry. I can still drive and cry.
I needed to do that. I needed to be right there. And the realization was that he isn't there anymore.
She was telling me how she was friends with the mother of one of the father of the family, and how difficult that was.
And if you've lost a child, it'll be something you're not even expecting, and you'll just see something completely random, and it just gets you.
I look at cardinals when I say, "Son, I need to see you. I need to feel you." Randomly, there's a cardinal somewhere.
He loved Flagstaff. He loved being in college there. Even as a kid growing up, he loved Flagstaff, but he was lucky enough to get to go to school there.
How hard it was to lose an entire family. And, we were chatting about that. And she said to me, but, how are you doing, Linda? At least you just have one person to grieve.
those types of things, those little things that just make you want to ball up into a cocoon and never come out. I'm really struggling, but I'm trying to change those things.
So I smile and I'm like, okay, I see you, son. I see you. Last Mother's Day, randomly at 8:30 at night, sun's down. It's just about gone. And there was one that jumped on the bird feeder, and Brian looked at me and said, "Happy Mother's Day." Made me smile. Made my heart warm.
A lot of times it's girls that are either her age, the age when she died, so girls around like the age of 10, 11.
I needed to remind myself that it's a good place to be. And so now I enjoy going to his favorite restaurants.
Had to quickly exit that store.
The stupid grabber blue Mustangs, I laugh at them now because they're at stop signs or they're at the red lights. I'll text Paula a picture of them here and there. And it happened Mother's Day when I went to get my nails done.
Listening to the song, Give Heaven Some Hell. We played it at his service. But you know what? I can smile now and sing along and know I was right there when you were baptized. Just like the song says.
And sometimes older girls that I think look like she would have looked, that have the same long blonde hair.
And I was done for the day because that's not something I was expecting.
Those triggers, seeing my other children cry because they miss him, that intense sadness.
I'm grateful I've been able to learn what a good trigger is and what a bad trigger is, because I would not want to live in bad triggers.
Getting together with his roommates. I went to lunch several times with his roommates at one of his favorite restaurants. And, we honored him.
Triggers, they all intensify grief.
Just as I pulled into the parking lot, there was one sitting there, kind of like, "Hey, Mom, have a good Mother's Day." And that was it. So that's my triggers. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're crazy, and that's it.
I won't say triggers are always going to be gone forever, but to where they are less of a sting for me and more of I can smile and cry at the same time.
There are triggers, but there are also ways to move past those triggers and not allow grief to define what you do.
Triggers, they can hold you hostage, and I'm trying my hardest to get away from that. Trying my hardest to get away from being held hostage by the grief and learning how to sit with it and focusing on the good memories.
Because it just reminds me of her and the older girls. It's kind of like the what if, what could have been.
I had to make a point to go to each of his favorite places and talk to him while I was there and sit at the same booth that we sat at and remember him fondly instead of being trapped in the bad memories. Good grief, that's what it's all about.